Here's your hosts, El Hombre and Vinny Blonde.
Hey, what up, what up? Trust the Profits coming at you, coming off of a few days after the Belmont Stakes. What's next on the agenda for any big horse racing gambler is a few months away yet, but we figured we get involved early here with the way too early to decide top 10 contenders for the Breeders' Cup Classic. And this is going to be an ongoing affair like our Derby top 10 was. We'll be updating it frequently from now till November, first weekend in November. Joining us tonight is Vinny Blonde, who's been on the show 100 times now, and he's a wealth of knowledge. Vinny, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me. It's definitely been a minute since I've been on, but always happy to be here.
First off, I guess let's get your take on how the Belmont went, and we'll start jumping into what we're looking forward to in the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Yeah, Belmont was great. In my opinion, the top two horses in the crop went 1-2. So that's a Belmont that we're going to be talking about for a couple of years at least. That effort by Hot Rod Charlie is one of the best second place efforts I've seen in a very long time.
Dude, epic. Like those two horses, those were my two favorites all year. I enjoyed watching both of them all year, and when I saw EQ coming on the outside and Hot Rod Charlie just did not give up, it was just an epic battle. It was awesome. One of my favorite races ever, to be honest with you. It was just freaking awesome.
It was nice to be on the right side of it. I'm usually on the wrong side of those.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because the same here. Actually, to get the win betting wise, on top of being the coolest race I've seen in a long time, it was awesome. So I think those two are. I think it's way too early. That's the name of our theme tonight. Way too early to talk about the Breeders' Cup Classic, but we're here and we're doing it. It's June 11th. Who cares how early it is? Because to me, you got the Triple Crown. That's the first half of the year, and then you got the Breeders' Cup in the fall, and everything else is just preparing for that. At least in American racing. So, with that said, we're going to go off and we're going to keep a top 10 all year. And outside of the top 10, obviously there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of young horses on the fringe, a lot of doped horses that may or may not enter the picture. Is there some older horses? What are we looking at? Who do you see outside of the top 10, which we have our top 10 list prepared for you, but before we jump into those, who else do we have on the radar that didn't quite make the top 10? I'll give you a couple. We've got horses like Sleepy Eyes Todd. He's been on everybody's radar. He went to Dubai and everywhere else. He's been in the money or close or on the board. He's always there, but doesn't seem to ever win. Vinny, any opinions on him? And give us a few others that you think are close to the top 10.
Yeah, he's always one that he seems to take money because everybody, he's one of those horses. He travels everywhere, and sometimes he wins, sometimes he doesn't. I think he's a cut below. There's always a Code of Honor, who's supposed to come back this summer at Saratoga. Maybe he's good enough, maybe he's not. I don't think I think he's another one who just never really panned out. By my standards, just ran a huge second in the Met Mile this past weekend.
Excellent run.
Yeah, he always seems to fall short. He doesn't. I believe he still does not have a Grade 1 victory, and he is like, that's my big knock on him, is when he gets into these Grade 1 races, he just seems to not run his best race, or if he runs his best race, it's not good enough. So he's one that, great underneath horse, does not finish out of the money, but just never good enough to win against the top-notch horses.
All right, I'll bring up a couple star 3-year-olds from this Triple Crown season. Medina Spirit and Mandaloon, both of them, that's your top two at the Kentucky Derby. Obviously, with the issues with Medina Spirit, do you see Medina Spirit or Mandaloon making they're obviously not in our top 10 if we're going to talk about them first, but do you think they have a shot to at least be in the field?
I think they do. I mean, if I would be shocked as long as Medina Spirit's still running that he's not entered. Especially with those connections. Mandaloon, I think I still need to see. He ran great in the Kentucky Derby. I'm assuming he will eventually be promoted to the winner of the Kentucky Derby, and rightfully so. I still question if he really wants the 1.25 miles. I still think he'll be in the race, but I don't. I think he got a great trip in the Derby, and that helped him. That really helped him finish the way he did. So we'll see, though. I mean, if he goes on, he wins this weekend in the Pegasus, which doesn't have money, isn't a great field. So he should handle that race. But like, if he comes back and if he wins the Haskell very easily, and then goes on to win like the Travers or something, like, he'll definitely be elevated. But I still need to see a little more from him.
All right, and what about we'd be sexist pigs if we didn't at least talk about a couple ladies that have a shot? Latruska, Monomoy Girl come to mind. Monomoy Girl, the best female horse the last couple of years. What's going on with her? Is she got a chance? Will they point her there?
I don't think so. It won't surprise me if they do, but I don't think so. I mean, especially the tear Latruska's been on. I don't think they try her either against the boys. The only female horse I really see them giving a shot to against the boys, well, actually two of them, are Malathat and Swiss Skydiver. Just because I think Swiss Skydiver really wants to go 1.25 miles, and the 1.125 miles that the distaff is at is not really what she wants. I think she wants longer, and same with Malathat. I think Malathat wants 1.25 miles. And I think she can get it very easily. So if any fillies enter, I think it's one of those two. But I still think that's a very very small chance that either of them actually end up running against the boys this year, in my opinion.
All right. Anybody else we didn't talk about, didn't bring up that you think could have an impact in the result that's not in our top 10?
I would say Life is Good is probably the only one. At least American-based horse.
Which, by the way, was clearly the best 3-year-old at the beginning of the season before the injury.
Right, he was, and I mean, part of that is he's in Baffert's barn, so we how much of that is legit, but he was the best. He was the best 3-year-old. I mean, he was airing horses easily, and that, like, we'll see what he's like when he comes back. But I mean, if he comes back just like he was, like, he'll be tough.
And how soon does he have to come back? I mean, how much preparation time is he going to need? Because we haven't seen much from him, especially, I mean, no race conditions for sure, but I mean, how far in advance does he have to come back to actually be a threat to at least, be in the field?
I think he only needs one start, honestly. I think if they run it,
monster, dude. He's a monster.
If he comes, in my opinion, as long as he doesn't have any setbacks, I think he'll go to the Pennsylvania Derby. And if he wins the Pennsylvania Derby, they maybe go awesome again with him. Probably not, though. But it wouldn't surprise me if he only has 1 or 2 starts before the Classic. Even if he goes in second off the layoff, it would not shock me. And they really target the Pegasus with him. They have the Pegasus be the 3rd start off the layoff, and they really target that race over the Breeders' Cup. But it won't shock me if he goes in with minimal starts.
And the only other couple names I think that have come up are Art Collector and Flightline. 2 horses that have obviously shown some flash in the past. Don't know who they are exactly. I mean, Art Collector was kind of a Jekyll and Hyde. Flightline is just such a small sample size. We don't know what that is.
Yeah, he just started training again off that maiden win, so we'll see what happens there. But I'm still not convinced that I think Flightline was kind of a flash in the pan maiden horse, but we'll see what happens with him.
So without further ado, the Breeders' Cup Classic, I believe there are 8, correct me if I'm wrong, 8 challenge races, win and you're in events. First one being June 26th, and I'm pretty sure there's 8 total, but I could be wrong. But in any case, we've narrowed it down to the top 10. And Vinny and I worked on this separately and came up with 9 of the same 10. So we kind of conjoined our lists and came up with the following. Our 10th spot, which was just a monster horse in his debut, and then stayed a monster even through a bunch of injury or health issues. I can't even recall what his history was, but he definitely was pulled out of the Triple Crown last year, but he came back and he's been awesome since. Number 10 is Maxfield. Vinny, what do you got to say about Maxfield? What's the pros and cons on him?
The pros are that he likes to win. He's only got 1 loss in 7 starts. Cons is that the only time he's faced anybody fantastic, he lost. I mean, he's been beating, he's beat Sonoman and Chess Chief twice. Those are not older horses that will probably end up in the Classic. Like those are undercard grade 3 caliber horses. So really, how good is he? He seems to be fragile. He is actually running though in that June 26th Stephen Foster though is where he's scheduled to run. So and that field should be pretty good. So we'll see if he can keep progressing. But yeah, that's why he's down at number 10, is that he kind of seems like one of those horses that he beats bad horses and then isn't fantastic against good horses.
And I think that June 26th will probably mark the date where we adjust our top 10 after we see what happens in that Stephen Foster, which is the first of several Breeders' Cup Classic Challenge Series races. All right, without further ado, we're going to go to 9. We have Idol. What's the full backstory on Idol? For anybody who doesn't know, what do we have here? What's the likes and dislikes on him?
Lightly raced 4-year-old, sired by Curlin. He won the Santa Anita Handicap last time out over Maxfield. He's another one though where he doesn't seem to be healthy a lot of the time, but when he's healthy, he runs very well. So yeah, he sired by Curlin. He's got AP Indy on the bottom. His pedigree is great. Just if they can keep this horse healthy, so he's one to keep an eye on. He's probably one of the more likely ones to fall off this top 10 list, honestly, as they start running, because he hasn't really worked. He hasn't done much. I think his last published work was in April, I believe, because I think he had a setback in training. But they're still, according to the connections, they're still pointing to the Breeders' Cup. So he's another one who might only have one or two starts from now until November.
Yeah, and that's why this is the way too early top 10 list. But again, we're such fans of the series, Breeders' Cup and the Triple Crown, that it's kind of a 2-season issue for us, and we start in early. So this horses like Idol and Maxfield and several others on our top 10 list could be changing even by the 26th of this month, a couple weeks from now. So this is by no means meant to be who we think is going to win. Although if there was some early bet offers out there, I'm sure we would put a couple of bucks on it. Moving on, we got number 8, who might be the most controversial horse on the list. Also, maybe at least in my eyes, because I was always a fan of this horse, maybe the highest end as far as potential. It's Charlatan. Your favorite guy, Bob Baffert, everybody's favorite. The White Ghost, Bob Baffert's horse. But look at this. Look at the animal on your screen. And this thing was just a specimen from the beginning. But Charlatan has been around. Didn't get another horse that didn't get to run his 3-year-old campaign much because of injury. And again, with the Baffert factor, what do we have here?
Yeah, I mean that's the key. We'll see what the Baffert factor is. I mean, his pedigree is one of my favorite pedigrees. He's got it. If you ever take a deep dive into it, his dam was very, very good and just got unlucky and ran against some very tough horses. But yeah, he's very talented, but he's another one. He can't stay healthy. So we'll see. We'll see if he can. We'll see how he comes back. I also question if he wants a 1.25 miles. He's run very well at 1 1/8 miles, but like in the Saudi Cup, he ran a perfect race. There was no. I don't think there was anything different they could have done to get him in the winner's circle, and he still failed to get in the winner's circle at 1 1/8 miles. So I think he would need an absolutely beautiful, perfect trip to find the winner's circle at 1 1/4 miles.
Yeah, I agree. That I was pretty disappointed in him not winning that.
He looked home free. He looked home.
It looked. Yeah, he was laid out perfect.
300 yards from home, he looked like he was home, and then he hit that last little bit of him, like 1/4 mile there. He hit a wall and just got run down. It was just like, oh, all right.
I thought it was him and Nick's Go, and Nick's Go fell apart on that race, and I thought Charlatan was going to punch out. Nope.
Yeah.
And I think if he would have right there, he'd probably be number 1 on our list. I mean,
if he had won that, if he had won that, like undefeated, just impressive wins. But yeah, you finished second and
monster speed figures.
Yep, and now the distance question really comes into play, I think, with him.
Okay, so now we move on to I guess a horse that's a journeyman type at this point. A veteran of the trade, been in 1,000 big races, it seems like. It's Tacitus at number 7. Yeah, 7, Tacitus. The Gray Ghost. Thoughts? I know Vinny's a big fan of this.
I love Tacitus. He's just
to the point of just getting harassed on Twitter all the time.
I get harassed. My thing with Tacitus, I think he only wants 1.25 miles. I don't think he wants anything else, and I think he wants to stalk. He wants to stalk a pace and make one big run. Is it good enough? Probably not. But his 1.25 mile races are just significantly better than anything else he's run. Back-to-back years, he's had awful luck going to Dubai. Last year, Dubai got canceled, and I thought he was going to win Dubai last year. And then this year, they ship him to Dubai after an effort in the Saudi Cup, which is only basically a 1-turn 1.1 miles. And he gets hurt. He gets hurt. It's like, so 2 years in a row, here's a horse that I think personally would have really contended in the Dubai World Cup, and unfortunately had to miss because of injury. But he's never done anything wrong. He's got a bunch of seconds and thirds. Doesn't really like to win, but he's always right there. So if he's supposed to come, they're working him back. They said he should be back by the end of August, I believe is what they said. I think he's back with Belmont now, and he put on some weight, so they got to get him back in the racing shape. But I would expect him to be an entrant in the Jockey Club Gold Cup this year, the last weekend of Saratoga.
Yeah, it's obviously a talented horse. My take on him is he's got a 0% chance to win this thing. 0%. But he's got a 90% chance of hitting the board somewhere.
I mean, everybody last year he went into the Jockey Club Gold Cup and he was a heavy favorite. He ends up losing, but it was forced to set the pace in a race that had 0 pace. He loses to Happy Saber and Mystic Guide. Mystic Guide comes back and has run 2 monster efforts, and Happy Saber just came back and ran a monster effort in his 4-year-old debut. So it's like all of a sudden this Jockey Club Gold Cup that everybody laughed at last year all of a sudden has produced a couple of very good horses. And plus he was only third by like a half a length. Like, he didn't lose by much. And his other losses are, he came in 4th. He was less than 3 lengths back of the winner of Authentic in the Breeders' Cup Classic last year. So yeah, he's just always right there. He's one of those, he's a try-hard.
Again, I think a 0% chance to win, but that does not mean that there's 0% chance I'm going to leave him out of a superfecta, that type of any exotic type of bet. He's proven his worth. He deserves to be in it, and he will be in it. I mean, health provided, obviously. Next up, you just mentioned him, number 6, we have Happy Saver, who has also been super impressive recently. Super Saver offspring. That the horse is, again, with the Jockey Club Gold Cup. I think you're right. I think that field was much stronger than we thought at the time, right? I mean,
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Happy Saver? That horse has been awesome the last couple times out.
He has been. I mean, I believe is he undefeated? I think he's undefeated. If he's not undefeated, he only has like 1 loss. The pedigree is great. We'll see if he keeps progressing. That's really my only issue is that like his last race was good. It was only at a mile though, and it was at Belmont. Most of his 3 of his 5 wins have come at Belmont. So we'll see if we'll see if he can ship, and 2, we'll see if he really improves, because he'll have to improve to win the Classic. He can't run what he did last race, and like he beat top seed in 3 techniques last race, and that's not the best. He didn't beat the best allowance field last time. So
yeah. 3 technique has always disappointed from day one. I remember that horse was super highly touted 2-year-old, and then it wasn't. Moving along, this is it's funny because we had talked about it briefly before we started recording, at how there's a little respect for this year's 3-year-old crop. Totally complete lack of respect for it outside of a couple, I'll say. And last year's 3-year-old crop was it better or worse or the same? I mean, it wasn't exactly star-studded, especially after when you look at horses like Charlatan and Maxfield, who had like a tainted campaign.
Yeah, the 3-year-olds last year just seemed like they needed everything. Like the top ones needed everything their way as 3-year-olds. And then, it's unfortunate we didn't get Tis the Law back, and we didn't get Authentic back. So you took away really the top 2 dogs in the class. So you kind of got what was left, and what was left. New York Traffic came back and ran good. Dr. Post came back and ran good in his 4-year-old debut, and then was way in over his head in the Met Mile. Yeah. But yeah, you have a few horses from that crop that are starting to come back and run well, but I think there's only a couple that are really actually going to shine as older horses.
So to get on to number 5 here, Silver State, coming off a big showing at Belmont last weekend. What immediately comes to mind about Silver State?
He is a horse that benefited from being taken off the Triple Crown Trail. I feel like as fans, I feel like you don't realize how hard that Triple Crown Trail can be. Because when you're a 3-year-old, it's like, okay, well, if I want to make the Derby, I have to run in this race, and then this race, and then make it to the Derby. Your schedule's kind of pre-made, laid out for you.
Yeah.
If you're not on that, you can kind of pick your spots, and you can wait. Okay, like my horse needs 2 months between races, and we kind of saw the same thing with Frosted when Frosted went from 3 to 4. When you can pick your spots and you're not kind of under a time constraint of like, I have to run in this race, the horses run better. And I think Silver State has shown that. I mean, he got destroyed in the Louisiana Derby last year. They gave him 7 months off until November. He comes back. He runs an allowance race in November, late November at Churchill, wins, and then he's been perfect this year. And he's been running every 35, 40 days. But maybe a little, maybe between 30 and 60 days, really. But they're picking their spots with him, and he's showing up. So that's what some of these horses really need. It's not like they weren't good as 3-year-olds. It's that schedule just didn't work for them.
That's a great point. The schedule plus the maturity level. It's just like any pro athlete in any sport. Some guys don't peak until their late 20s. Some guys peak at early 20s. some guys get better as life goes on until they're old. And I think that this horse is another example. There's been a zillion horses in history that have gotten better after their 3-year-old campaign, whether it was scheduling or just the maturity of their body or whatever, or getting healthy. But yeah, Silver State's been awesome. We have him at number 5. I like it. I think the horse is going to be... I don't think he's one of the ones that's going to fall off the list, put it that way. I think he's going to be a threat, a threat all the way to the end. He'll be in it, hopefully, as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah, I just hope his schedule, usually you see these horses come back later. It makes it very tough, like when they have when you have a full campaign, it does make it tough. I know last year, Authentic won and he had a full campaign. But it is tougher, I think, for these full campaign horses to make it all the way there. So I really hope he does, though, because then it helps that argument that, running 2 races a year is not the way that the future should be with these horses.
Yeah, I hate that too. Moving along, number 4, probably the horse I know the least about, to be honest with you. Mystic Guide. Tell us a little bit about his history. Why do we have him so high?
He's another one. Yeah, he ran. He wasn't on the Derby Trail last year. He actually, because of the scheduling, he ended up winning the Jim Dandy closing weekend at Saratoga, which not a lot of people remember. He was a nose away from winning the Jockey Club Gold Cup, and then they gave him a break until this year. He came back in the Razorback and blew the doors off that field. Field they had some decent horses in it. You had Silver Prospector and Owendale, who are always kind of right there. Blew the doors off of that field, and then they shipped him to. They ended up shipping him to Dubai, and he destroyed the Dubai World Cup field.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's put himself on the map there. That was a huge effort. He has won. He's got big time connections with Godolphin, so he will be, which is actually the same connections as Essential Quality. So
EQ.
They're big, and actually Maxfield. So it'll be interesting to see the placement of all 3 of these horses, especially since they're all more usually like East Coast based. Going forward, but yeah, his 2 starts as a 4-year-old are just very, very impressive.
Godolphin could own this thing. I mean, look, with the 3 entries, I mean, I think 3 really strong entries if they all stay healthy and they're all pointed in that direction.
They're having a huge year.
Yeah, huge. And EQ was just a piss test away from maybe being different, And I hate to even say that he would have won the Kentucky Derby or anything like that, because it's probably not true. But it would have been a different race. That's one of the best 3-year-olds of all time, in my opinion. Honestly,
it was kind of like
in my lifetime. How's that sound?
It was kind of like when Point Given ran in the Derby. Point Given ran in the Derby and he ran 6th. It just wasn't his day. And then he ran 5th or 6th. And then he came back and he dominated the Preakness and Belmont, and then he won the Travers. I remember that. I don't remember if he ran in the Haskell before, but then that was it for him. But yeah, I mean, he ran. I mean, according to some people, he ran the best race in the Derby. He ran 68 feet farther than everybody else, and he only finished a length behind.
Exactly.
But I mean, that's how it goes on a 20-horse field. He might have been
close to being a legend, and there's been a lot of horses that were close to being a legend.
Right.
And I think, at least in my lifetime, he's in the top 5.
Definitely one of the more impressive Belmont victories in recent years.
That was great. And speaking of that, moving on to number 3 is the horse that he nosed, HRC Hot Rod Charlie.
Yeah,
awesome season, dude. I mean, I loved watching him from the Breeders' Cup at whatever ridiculous odds he went off at and finished 2nd. Another horse that just doesn't seem to love to win, but is always stalking 2nd, 3rd, and the heart he showed in the Belmont, ridiculous. I already loved him, and then the Belmont happened, and now it's like, dude, that horse is historically awesome to me.
Yeah, he's just a horse. He makes his own trip, and I said this going into the Derby with him after he won the Louisiana Derby, and I had him very high going into the Kentucky Derby, and he ran great.
Yeah,
he's a horse.
He always has run great. Every race he's run great.
Yeah, he makes his own trip. And it's very hard to teach. Some horses, they need the lead. They don't get the lead, they fall apart. Horses need need a pace. If they don't get a pace, they can't close. He's so versatile, and that's these are the horses. And the horses can make their own trip. Like they end up being great, and he makes his own. He just makes his own trip. He's a horse I really hope who sticks around and runs. Runs at 4 and 5 because he's so versatile. He can win he won he nearly stole the Belmont running ridiculous fractions at 1.5 miles setting the pace. But in the Kentucky Derby,
the second fastest or the fastest Belmont half since Secretariat.
I think that was the stat. But yeah, the final time
wildly fast.
The final time was 2:27. I think Secretariat's final time was 2:24. So they were still a couple seconds off of it, but still nobody's even been close to what Secretariat ran.
But the half measure was
even the opening. The fact that he was even there that late after running a sub 23 opening quarter was nuts.
Yeah, because EQ laid back and ran his race.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, I immediately knew it was EQ's race when I saw Rocket World stumble out of the gate again. Or not stumble, okay, maybe that's a little
He just doesn't break. He breaks like a turf horse. That's it. He's a turf horse.
As soon as I saw that he wasn't going straight to the front, I said, this is over. And then HRC's gone. He's punching out, and I'm like, okay, we're still good. And then EQ gets outside of him, and I said, this thing's over. I thought Essential Quality was going to check out, leave him in the dust. Hot Rod Charlie answers and just makes it a stressful. Just awesome. Again, historically great race too.
I was gonna say, I believe I'm just looking at final times here real quick. But the exception of American, obviously last year it was only 1 1/8 miles. But with the exception of American Pharaoh's race, because Pharaoh finished in 2:26. That is the 2:27.11 is, I believe, the fastest, at least since 2002. But it's the second fastest since 2002. That was an amazing effort to come in second. But he's so versatile. The older crop, as we've already discussed, isn't the best. I really think this 3-year-old crop is going to end up, everyone's been mocking it all year. And I think
talking about him in the classic.
I think it's very top heavy. But the top few are just. I think the top few definitely can contend.
Yeah, especially if you consider Life is Good coming back healthy, which I don't think either of us do think he's coming back for this race. But if he does, there might be something to talk about. Mandaloon's another one.
Mm-hmm.
That's another 3-year-old with a shot. So, with that said, the cream of the crop 3-year-old for sure all year, with the exception of the Derby, and we've all talked about it at length with the 70 extra feet measured, bad post position draw. Essential Quality was the best horse of the year. Best horse, in my opinion, in a long time. At least since Justify and American Pharaoh and, whoever else you want to talk about. But number 2 is Essential Quality. And again, the laughing stock 3-year-old class that everybody couldn't wait to laugh at, piss all over their face. I think has a legit shot to win the whole thing. I hope he does. But at number 2, Essential Quality, Vinny, run it back for me. What's your take on him and his shot to win the whole thing?
He's got a very good shot to win the whole thing. If he can stay healthy, he's got a very good shot to win the whole thing. He just keeps getting better. The Belmont effort was. Usually the reason that people discredit 3-year-olds at this point of the year is, they're winning with buyers that are high 90s, maybe a 100. He ran a 109. I think they gave Hot Rod Charlie a 108. Those are,
109 and 108.
Those are nasty numbers. If he a 109 probably wins the Breeders' Cup Classic. I'm not saying he can maybe he never repeats a 109, but the fact that he ran a 109 going a mile and a half is just, that's disgusting. He need, like, even if he regresses, he keeps running triple digit buyers, like, you have to respect him.
What do you think about my theory on this is with him is, do you think they may have accidentally learned, I don't know if it's accidentally, but is it possible that they learned something by him falling a little further back and a little further off the pace than I think he's used to, or maybe even the plan was? Because I know usually he likes to be close to the front, and he fell a little further back than I thought was. I was a little bit worried about it at first because he fell pretty far back.
He did, but after that,
I mean,
yeah, but I mean, when you look at his splits that he ran, and that's what usually, you know, when you get horses like that don't run, that don't really have one big run, and they kind of just keep going at the same speed. Like, his splits are great. He gets stronger late, but he runs like 23, 20. He goes like 23, 23, 23, 22. Like, that's kind of what he does. And like, he's like, so
that's exactly who you want. I mean, that's
right. You want horses like that. And like, the big issue with him is that he really doesn't have, like, he's not flashy, which you don't need to be flashy to win the Classic. But the issue is that, like, yeah, he put away Hot Rod Charlie late after Hot Rod Charlie set that ridiculous pace. But, like, in the Derby, he made his move with Hot Rod Charlie, and he really struck. Like, yeah, he ran 70 feet farther, and I think he ran 13 feet farther than Hot Rod Charlie. But he had no excuse not to go by in the Derby. So it kind of just, that's my one concern with him, is that he kind of is more of a grinder than I think people realize. In like, to the point of, if he's not, like, if he's close, like, if he's making a move into the pace like that, and the pace is kind of coming back to him, he's fine. But if he's making a move at the same time as another one of these horses is making a move, like, if you watch, like, comparing him to Mystic Guide has a turn of foot in the stretch that makes him very dangerous. I think Essential Quality is more talented, but he doesn't really have that turn of foot, in my opinion, which is kind of the hesitant part. But if he's running if he keeps running like 109s, like, there's like, he's just gonna win. He's just gonna win. So, and that's kind of the issue with Tappet horses. Tappet horses have kind of always been like that, where they don't really have a monster turn of foot. They just kind of, they run at a high level. But they don't, in my opinion, they don't have that, like, flash that other horses really have.
And that's exactly true with Essential Quality and Hot Rod Charlie. I think they have a very similar running style. Obviously, Hot Rod Charlie a little speedy up front compared to EQ, but that was what was cool about another cool factor about the Belmont this year was, like, I think out of the 8 starters, probably 5 of them had a very similar approach to the race. And to see how freaking the strategies unfold between Hot Rod Charlie and Essential Quality, and they both worked to perfection, obviously with a 109 and 108 buyer. Wildly successful journeys for both of them, and to see that, I'm glad. I was really happy, and I guess, like, a redemption of all the trash that everybody talked about the 3-year-old crop, with those two standing out as the 2 best horses, which I like them all year, both of them as my 2 favorites. Mandaloon, I just probably 3rd, but I mean, I never really believed in Medina Spirit, even before the piss tests. I just didn't. There was something sketchy there, and it wasn't even. I liked them early on, but I just didn't believe in him like I believed in those 2. And I'll even throw Mandaloon as 3rd there, but dude, it was great to see those 2. And I really do think that I think Essential Quality is going to win the Breeders' Cup Classic, but he's not our number 1 for good reason. And that reason is because of this guy right here, Mishriff. And there's one huge reason why. Why is that, Vinny? Why do we have him at number 1?
He won the Saudi Cup, and then he came back and he won the Dubai Shaheem Classic, which is their 1.5 mile turf race. He's just a good horse. Some of these European horses, I mean, there's another one that you had on your list was Cafe
Pharaoh.
Yeah, there's some of these Europeans are just very good. Mischief ran down Charlatan in the Saudi Cup, who, I mean, Charlatan looked home free, and he grinded him down. He kind of did the same thing in the turf race. The only question, he's currently number 1 here. He'll probably end up slipping back as he just keeps running on the turf. He could actually end up just coming here for the turf and not run on the dirt for the Classic, especially with the race being in California this year. But I mean, the Saudi Cup's not graded, but I mean,
but it's worth $100 million.
Right. He won. Right. I mean, he arguably won. He won one of the world's richest dirt races and followed it up by winning one of the world's richest turf races. Exactly. Horse is just classy. And he's another one of those horses. He just he just runs at a target and he can get there. So
by the way, at the time, Charlatan looked pretty damn invincible, and like you said, had a pretty damn perfect trip too.
Yeah, I mean,
Charlatan had the dream run, and I bet Charlatan in that race because I remember it was all the hype was Knicks Go, which is another juice monster, by the way. Knicks Go was coming off of a bunch of dominant, maybe not a bunch, a couple dominant performances. All the money was on Charlatan and Knicks Go, and as soon as Charlatan had Knicks Go cleared, I thought it was over. I really did. And here comes Mishrif and ran it down and then beat them. By the time it was said and done, it was like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah. Charlatan put away, he put away Knicks Go, and he had about 2 lengths on Mishrif, and then Mishrif just grinded him down the whole stretch. He just stuck with him, and I mean, you couldn't have asked for more from Charlatan. He ran a picture perfect race, and it just wasn't good enough. So I mean, he's another.
I was shocked, man.
Yeah, and this is the other, and this is kind of the weird thing with this group, because usually probably as we get on towards the Breeders' Cup season, we'll start seeing more flashy efforts. But usually you see usually you got a flashy effort in there, like the year Frosted's Met Mile. Like usually you get one of these horses that runs this race that's just like, he blows the doors off the field. And I guess we kind of have that with Mystic Guide. But a lot of these horses just kind of seem like, they don't want to win by a lot. Which kind of makes it this more interesting. Right. It makes it very interesting because it keeps horses in the race. It keeps horses, like, I know you said he has a 0% chance of winning. Horses like that keep a horse like Tacitus in a race because they don't, they're not.
If he has a dream trip and has the run of his life, he could win. I'm with you. That makes
right.
sense.
Yeah, it makes it so, and it's kind of like how most turf racing is, and that's why I really enjoy turf racing. Is you usually don't see horses blow horses away in these turf stakes. They usually win by a length and a half. But then you get a monster like Domestic Spending, who will just, he just runs away from everybody. And it's like, oh, that's a really good horse. Probably don't ever leave him off a ticket again.
Yeah.
But that's what makes this Classic so far, at least like who we think are contenders, so interesting, is that you don't really have that yet in this field, besides Mystic Guide, who, I mean, he blew the doors off some horses that we'll see how good they come back. I don't know how that Dubai field wasn't the best Dubai World Cup field. I mean, he beat Title Ready, finished 11th. Jesus's team finished 6th. Sleepy Eyes Todd finished 10th. He didn't beat anybody. He didn't beat any American.
Impressive finishes throughout the year, though. I mean, it's
right.
No slouches.
Right. They're just not, they're not horses that were winning, though. Jesus's team just has a habit of coming in like 2nd and 3rd. Same with Sleepy Eyes Todd and Title Ready. So, he beat some named horses, but he didn't beat, I don't think he beat anybody who was a serious contender for the classic in that race.
No, this is gonna be a super interesting classic season. We're gonna, like I said at the beginning of the podcast here, we're gonna keep this updated. Probably after each of the classic challenge series races. There's 8 of them, if I'm not mistaken. And again, out of this top 10 here, I'm sure there'll be a few swapped out, a few that'll drop out, a few that'll join in, and like Vinny was just saying, a few super impressive performances that'll shoot somebody straight to the top.
Yeah,
somebody that might not even be on this list yet. So this is the way too early top 10 Breeders' Cup Classic. And by the way, we're going to do this with some other divisions too. We just wanted to start with the Classic. That's the most prestigious. It usually represents the best horse in the world at the time, at any age, any sex, any distance. So this is the, to me the Breeders' Cup's the pinnacle of the year, at least in the U.S., in all the world for me, even more than the Triple Crown. Triple Crown is awesome, especially that Belmont was incredible. But I always look forward to the Breeders' Cup highest level, and that's because they mix up horses from around the world, all disciplines, and I can't wait for it this year. It's June right now, and we're talking about it in November. If that tells you the level of excitement we have for it, so
yeah, I'm excited. I'm definitely excited for it. The other divisions, I mean, especially if we start getting to the turf, that will be fun because the turf is dominated by Euros, and that will be. I can promise you that if we both submit a top 10 to each other, it's not going to match as closely as this one did. Yeah. Oh no.
There's going to be like 5 horses that each other.
Probably not. Yeah. And I mean, especially we'll have to do if we're going to do the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, that will be later on because there's half the good juveniles haven't even debuted yet.
We're going to pretty much follow a lot as close as we can to the Challenge Series events that kind of start exposing the win and you're in horses, because obviously a lot of these people are going to try to get their horses into races where they can win and get in, lock into the field early, and you'll start seeing the fields form. It's going to, obviously that's why it's 5 months from now, 4.5 months from now, but with each weekend starting at the end of June, you'll start seeing horses lock into the fields, and it's awesome. If you've never watched the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series races, it's people's dreams. It's trainers and owners and jockeys' dreams coming true. So it's pretty cool to watch everybody get their spot in the Breeders' Cup, which for a lot of these guys is a dream come true, even for some of these jockeys. I mean, so it's pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah, actually, I was just looking at the Challenge Series. Cafe Faro actually has a spot because he won the I don't know what race this was.
Tokyo.
Yeah, but since he won that, he's got a free berth.
He's the only one locked in right now. He won the, what was it, the Tokyo something in Japan?
Yeah, I'd have to look. I follow those races, but I don't follow them that closely. I remember him.
I know for a fact he's the only one locked into
because the next couple classics, like Stephen Foster, then the Suburban, and the Haskell is a winning. I still can't believe the Haskell's a winning year in for it, but oh well.
Wow.
But the Whitney, so is the Whitney though, and I will be at the Whitney, so that will be cool.
I might have to fly up for that one. I gotta fly up into one of these New York metropolitan area races this year. So
yeah, I got my season pass for Saratoga, so I will be there as much as I can this year.
What's the date on the Whitney? I might start looking into that.
August 7th is the Whitney.
There's no excuse for me not to go.
I
am going to Disney next weekend, so I gotta.
Ooh, nice. Jealous.
Yep. Yeah.
Jealous. I'm a big Disney nerd. August 7th is the Whitney weekend, and August 28th is the Travers weekend.
I'll be at one of those. I'll mark my words. I'll be at one of them. I'd hopefully the Whitney, because I've been to the Travers before. I haven't been to the Whitney before. So.
Whitney's always a fun race. Always a fun race. They the last couple of years they've kind of they've stacked the card kind of like they did Travers Day for it. So it's usually more than one stakes race.
And I know you guys will roll out the red carpet for me if I come out. So,
Of course.
all right, man. Anything else to close out? BC Classic 2021.
No, I don't think so. We'll start with this list and we'll see. Actually, I'm curious. Did you ever go back and see how our Derby list did for the?
Oh,
I'm very curious.
it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. We'll cover that because I wish you'd have brought that up earlier.
I honestly didn't think about it until you said it like right in the intro that we had done one you did it for the Derby, and I was just like, I wonder how that list ever, because I had my updated list, but I'm like, I wonder how my very first list did, because I feel like I had Essential Quality 1 or 2, but I don't know if I had Medina Spirit anywhere.
I can tell you that my very first one, I remember for sure I had Essential Quality 1 because my number 1 is always the Breeders' Cup 2-year-old champion. And I had Life is Good at 2. And
I think I had Mandaloon super, super high because I was super high on Mandaloon.
And I think we might have had him, because we were doing a top 25 list.
Yeah.
I think Mandaloon was in the middle of that, like maybe 12 or 10 on ours, and you had him like 2. I want to say you had him 2, which was
I had him I feel like I had him like 2 or 3. I had him super high. I still think he's a very good horse. I
do have record of both of our lists at the beginning of that, which is going to be interesting to look at. We'll pull it up for the next reset on the Breeders' Cup list because it's always fun to go back and look.
Right.
I remember last year I had Tis the Law number 1 all the way through, which I still think he's number 1 because I think Authentic was more of a juice monster than.
I think the issue with Tis the Law was that I will still go on record saying that I think the issue with Tis the Law was the schedule. I think if it was a traditional Triple Crown schedule, I think Tis the Law probably wins the Triple Crown. But because of this way the schedule got messed up, I mean the fact that he kept him good as long as he did was like just a testament to how good, like how underrated of a trainer Tag is. I mean, Tag did everything he could to keep that horse at 100%, and like he wasn't. He wasn't towards the end. You could tell the season caught up to him. But if they had run that race, the Derby in May, there was nobody even near his level, and there was nobody near his. There was nobody near his level until probably July, and that's kind of when Authentic kind of like started to emerge as like a legitimate contender. I mean, there was.
True or false? Authentic pissed dirtier than Medina Spirit, but they hit it, and then this year they decided they couldn't hide it any longer.
I think that's false. I still credit the ride that he got in the Derby.
It looked very similar. That was a very similar to.
It wasn't. It was well this year in the Derby. Johnny made a move, and like I feel like I'm the only one who talked about it. When he went around the turn and before he straightened out, he went from like the 2 path to like the 4 path with him. And when he made that move, it forced everybody else to go wider. Instead of anybody, he waited for Mandaloon to make that move, and he started to move him out because it was too late for Mandaloon to duck back in. And everybody else followed Mandaloon. So when Mandaloon went wide, he kind of pushed him wide, and you can see it when you watch the replay.
Yeah,
he pushes everybody a little wide, and I think that move. I mean, yes, it turned out he was juiced, but that move I think ultimately is the reason he held on, was because he made everybody else go a little bit wider than they wanted to, and a little bit of the loss of ground killed them.
Yep.
Last year in the Derby, he just waited for Tis the Law to make his run, and when Tis the Law made his run and pulled up alongside of him, that's when he asked Authentic to go. And that was just an experienced jockey beating a young jockey, where Manny Franco thought he had the race won, and he hadn't realized that Johnny still had a handful of reins left, waiting for, Johnny just waited because he knew it was the only horse that was going to catch him. And then, I was still shocked too. But in reality, nothing against Manny, but if that was Rosario or Saez or You know, if that was one of those guys, even one of the Ortiz brothers, tis the law wins. I 100% think that was because of it was an overconfident ride. It was a very overconfident ride because he thought that was it. He turned the corner and Manny even did his look back to see if anybody else was coming. He thought the race was over and Johnny just schooled him. So I think that's where John Velazquez doesn't get enough credit in races like that, where he does little things that really make the difference, especially when they're tight finishes like they were in this year's Derby. And that's the one thing I'll feel bad when they take the win away from Medina Spirit, is that, like, obviously I don't think Johnny knew that the horse was drugged. But I mean, he gave that. I mean, that's the ride he gave Medina Spirit is why he's a Hall of Fame rider. I mean, that was a picture perfect ride. And
yeah, because like you said, he pushed them out, and the 4 of those horses that were in contention all the way, it was bizarre because they came at the top of the stretch in that same order. And how rarely do you see a four abreast, like a birds flying in a V almost, flocked out to the right, and nobody passed each other all the way down the stretch. It was wild.
Yeah, that was I mean, that was just like they seemed to be very tired. But yeah, that was just like, you were hoping somebody, the whole stretch run, I was just hoping somebody would find Medina Spirit.
Yeah, I wanted Hot Rod Charlie or Essential Quality, obviously, but I would have been real excited if Hot Rod Charlie won that, but it is what it is.
Yep.
So anyway, I think we're going to wrap it up, dude. It's been close to an hour. It's too long. Everybody's tired of looking at our ugly mugs.
Right.
Yeah, we'll reset this thing in a couple weeks, and I'm sure we'll have some updates to our list. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Vinny, thanks for joining. As always, an informative experience. We'll talk soon, man. Thanks, everybody. Peace out.
Thanks for having me.